Harold Washington settled into his comfortable seat in the premium cabin of the star cruiser Valiant. At 72 years old, his movements were careful but precise. The soft hum of the ship's engines was barely noticeable as the vessel prepared for its journey from Earth to Alpha Centauri, humanity's first and most developed colony beyond the solar system. Harold wore a simple gray sweater and dark pants, nothing flashy or attention-grabbing. His only luggage was a worn leather bag tucked neatly under the seat in front of him. As he adjusted his seat settings, he gazed out the viewport at the bustling spaceport. After decades in the aerospace industry, he still found the sight of spacecraft breathtaking. The premium cabin filled slowly with well-dressed business travelers and wealthy tourists. Several gave Harold curious glances but quickly returned to their own preparations. Harold paid them no mind. He had long ago grown used to being the only black face in such settings. "Excuse me, sir?" Harold looked up to see a young flight attendant standing in the aisle. Her name tag read, Lily Brooks. She had a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Yes?" Harold replied. "I just need to verify your boarding information," Lily said. "This is the premium cabin." She emphasized the word premium slightly, her eyes flickering to Harold's. "Simple clothes." Harold nodded and reached into his pocket for his travel card. "Of course, here you go." Lily took the card and scanned it with her handheld device. She frowned at the display. "Is something wrong?" Harold asked. "Just one moment, please," Lily said. She stepped away and whispered something to another flight attendant, a tall man with graying hair at his temples. The man approached Harold with a stern expression. "Sir, I'm Greg Patterson, the head flight attendant. There seems to be some confusion with your seating assignment." Harold raised an eyebrow. "What sort of confusion?" "This section is reserved for premium ticket holders," Greg explained, speaking slowly as if to a child. "The standard cabin is toward the rear of the vessel." "I'm aware of that," Harold said calmly. "I purchased a premium ticket." Greg's expression grew doubtful. "Our system shows an upgrade was processed, but there's no payment record. Sometimes passengers accidentally wander into the wrong section during boarding." By now, several nearby passengers were watching the exchange with interest. Harold felt the familiar weight of their stares but kept his face neutral. "There's no mistake," Harold said. "I booked and paid for this seat directly through your company's reservation system." Greg's lips tightened. "Sir, premium upgrades cost an additional 8,000 credits. Our records don't show this payment." "Then your records are incorrect," Harold replied. His voice remained level, though his hands had tightened slightly on the armrests. "I suggest you check again." Greg's face flushed slightly. "Please understand. We need to follow proper procedures." "And I understand that," Harold said. "But I am seated exactly where I paid to be." Greg turned to Lily. "Get the captain." The tension in the cabin grew as passengers openly stared now. Harold remained still, his posture straight, his expression calm despite the churning in his stomach. In his 5 decades of professional life, this same scene had played out countless times, in countless ways. Minutes later, Lily returned with a middle-aged man in a captain's uniform. His nameplate identified him as Captain Alan Murphy. "What seems to be the problem?" Captain Murphy asked. Greg stepped closer to the captain and lowered his voice, but Harold could still hear him. "Possible unauthorized cabin upgrade. He insists. He paid, but the system doesn't show it." The captain turned to Harold. "Sir, I apologize for the inconvenience, but we'll need to resolve this before takeoff. May I see your identification, please?" Harold reached into his pocket again and produced his ID card. "Perhaps you should check your passenger manifest more carefully," he suggested quietly. Captain Murphy scanned the ID and his eyes widened slightly. He glanced at Harold, then back at the display. He handed the ID back to Harold with noticeably more care. "Mr. Washington," he said, his tone completely changed. "I apologize for the confusion. Of course your documentation is in order." Greg looked confused. "Captain, Mr. Washington is exactly where he's supposed to be," Captain Murphy said firmly. "Let's ensure he has everything he needs for a comfortable journey." Greg's face showed dawning recognition. Washington? Are you related to the Washington of Washington Galactic Industries? Harold picked up his water glass and took a small sip before answering. I founded the company 40 years ago. The color drained from Greg's face. Washington Galactic Industries was the largest spacecraft manufacturer in the solar system, pioneering the very fusion propulsion technology that powered this vessel. Lily's hand flew to her mouth. Sir, we had no idea. Clearly, Harold said. He didn't raise his voice or change his calm demeanor. Captain Murphy stepped in. Mr. Washington, please accept our sincere apologies for this misunderstanding. If there's anything we can do to make your journey more comfortable, all I want, Harold interrupted gently, is to complete my journey without further incident. The captain nodded quickly. Of course, sir. Again, our deepest apologies. As the crew retreated, whispers spread through the cabin. Harold turned his attention back to the viewport, watching as ground crews completed final preparations for launch. He thought about the meeting waiting for him on Alpha Centauri. The irony wasn't lost on him that this very airline, Stellar Transit Authority, was the subject of that meeting. Their financial troubles had become common knowledge in industry circles. They desperately needed new spacecraft to remain competitive. But with their credit rating in freefall, financing seemed impossible. Harold had traveled personally because some decisions shouldn't be made from a distance. Now he had even more to consider. The ship's engines hummed louder as pre-launch sequences began. Harold felt the familiar excitement of space travel pushing aside the sour taste of the recent confrontation. Beyond Earth's atmosphere lay the stars, and Harold Washington had always looked upward, even when others tried to force his gaze down. The star cruiser Valiant lifted off smoothly, breaking free from Earth's gravity with graceful power. As the blue planet receded behind them, Harold closed his eyes and allowed himself a small smile. The journey would be interesting indeed. The star cruiser Valiant moved smoothly through space, leaving Earth far behind. Harold Washington sat quietly in his premium cabin seat, watching the stars through the viewport. His mind wandered back through the years, to the long road that had brought him to this moment. Born in Detroit to working parents, Harold grew up in a small house where money was always tight, but love was plentiful. His father worked at an auto factory, coming home with hands rough from labor but always finding energy to help Harold with science projects. His mother cleaned offices at night, yet never missed a chance to read to him, feeding his hungry mind with stories of great inventors and explorers. Young Harold showed a gift for mathematics early on. By age 10, he was taking apart and rebuilding electronic devices around the house. His 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Summers, noticed his talents and fought to get him into advanced classes. Not everyone welcomed the quiet black boy into those spaces. Some teachers ignored his raised hand. Some classmates refused to work with him on projects. Harold learned to work alone. He learned patience. Most importantly, he learned that his ideas were valuable, even when others pretended not to see them. A full scholarship took Harold to college, where he studied engineering. He graduated top of his class, despite advisors suggesting he choose an easier path. The big aerospace companies were hiring when he finished school, but Harold's job interviews rarely led to offers. When a small company finally hired him, his starting position was lower than his white classmates with worse grades. You have to work twice as hard to get half as far, his father had told him. So Harold did exactly that. At his desk, Harold developed new ideas for spacecraft engines. His designs could make ships travel faster using less fuel. But his bosses took his work, putting other names on the patents. Harold watched men he had trained get promoted above him. Still, he kept working, kept learning, kept designing. After 15 years, Harold was still in a middle position while his ideas made the company millions. When he asked about advancement, his manager said he lacked leadership presence. That night, Harold went home to the small apartment he shared with his wife Elaine. She worked as a nurse, supporting his dreams as fiercely as he supported hers. They passed me over again, he told her. Elaine took his hands in hers. Then maybe it's time to pass them over. The next day, Harold resigned. At 40 years old, with their small savings and a loan against their apartment, he and Elaine started Washington Aerospace Solutions in their garage. Their first project was building improved control systems for existing spacecraft. The work was difficult, the hours long, but Harold's reputation for solving problems that stumped others slowly brought clients to their door. 5 years later, they rented their first real workshop and hired 3 employees. 10 years in, Washington Aerospace had 50 workers and a contract with the government to design life support systems. The real breakthrough came when Harold finally got to pursue his original engine designs. After 3 years of development and testing, he unveiled the Washington Fusion Core. It used a fraction of the fuel of traditional engines while delivering twice the speed. The space industry took notice. Orders poured in. Washington Aerospace became Washington Galactic Industries. What started in a garage now filled massive facilities across North America. By the time Harold turned 60, his company employed over 70,000 people worldwide. When Elaine died of cancer the following year, Harold established the Elaine Washington Foundation, providing scholarships for minority students in science and engineering. Despite his growing wealth and influence, Harold maintained his simple habits. He drove an older car, lived in a comfortable but modest home, and focused on the work rather than the trappings of success. Some business magazines called him the invisible billionaire because he rarely appeared at industry events and avoided publicity. As the Star Cruiser continued its journey, Harold was pulled from his memories by a soft voice. "Mr. Washington, would you care for a drink?" It was Lily Brooks, the flight attendant, who had first questioned his presence in the premium cabin. Her cheeks colored slightly as she spoke, her discomfort obvious. "Just water, please," Harold replied. She poured the water with careful movements. "Mr. Washington, I wanted to personally apologize for earlier. My behavior was unacceptable." Harold studied her face, seeing genuine regret there. "Thank you for saying that, Ms. Brooks. Most passengers would have reported me," she said quietly. "Would that have helped either of us?" Harold asked. She handed him the water. "Probably not. I'd lose my job, and you'd still have been treated poorly." Harold nodded. "Then let's consider it a learning moment instead." Lily hesitated, then asked, "May I ask why you're traveling to Alpha Centauri?" "Business," Harold replied, though not the kind most people expect. "What do you mean?" Harold took a sip of water. "I'm going to a meeting about this very airline, actually. Stellar Transit Authority is in financial trouble." Lily's eyes widened. "I've heard rumors, but management keeps saying everything's fine." "Companies often say that right until they aren't," Harold said. "They need new ships to stay competitive, ships they can't afford." Lily glanced around to make sure no other passengers were listening. "Will your company help them?" "That depends on several factors," Harold replied. "I came to see for myself what kind of company Stellar Transit really is." Understanding dawned on Lily's face. "And we didn't make a great first impression?" Harold's expression remained neutral. "First impressions can be misleading. I prefer to look deeper." Lily seemed about to say more when her colleague Greg approached. His face was still tense with embarrassment as he addressed Harold. "Captain Murphy would like to invite you to the flight deck, Mr. Washington. He thought you might enjoy seeing the new navigation system." Harold considered for a moment. "That would be interesting. Thank you." As Harold followed Greg toward the front of the ship, he noticed how differently the crew treated him now. The same people who had questioned his right to be in the premium cabin now stepped aside respectfully. The same voices that had been cold were now warm and helpful. Harold had seen this change countless times before. Respect should be for the person, not the position or the wealth, he believed. As he entered the flight deck to meet Captain Murphy, he wondered if Stellar Transit Authority could learn that lesson, or if they were too far gone to save. The captain greeted him with an outstretched hand. "Mr. Washington, welcome to the bridge of the Valiant. It's an honor to have the pioneer of modern fusion propulsion aboard." "The honor is mine," Harold replied politely. I've always believed the true measure of technology is how it performs in real conditions, not just in laboratories. As the captain began explaining the ship's systems, Harold listened carefully. He wasn't just evaluating the technology. He was evaluating the people who operated it, the company that maintained it, and whether any of it was worth saving. Harold Washington returned to his seat after touring the flight deck of the star cruiser Valiant. Captain Murphy had been eager to show him every detail of the ship's operation, pointing out with pride how many of the systems were based on Harold's early designs. The tour had been informative, but Harold was tired now. At 72, he needed more rest than he once did. As he settled back into his seat, his personal communication device buzzed. Harold took it from his pocket and saw a message from Vanessa Rodriguez, his chief financial officer and most trusted advisor. "The data you requested about Stellar Transit Authority." The message read, "It's worse than we thought." Harold opened the attached files and studied them carefully. The numbers confirmed what industry rumors had suggested. Stellar Transit Authority was 3 months from complete financial collapse. Their older ships used too much fuel. Their ticket prices were too high to compete with newer airlines. And their request for loans had been rejected by 12 different banks. Without new ships, they would lose their route licenses. Without route licenses, 5,000 employees would lose their jobs. It was a bad situation that was about to become much worse. Harold closed the files and looked out at the stars. He had seen companies die before. Sometimes it was necessary, the market-making room for better ideas and better management. But sometimes good companies with good people failed because they lacked what he had been given so many years ago. One chance to prove their worth. His thoughts were interrupted when Lily Brooks appeared beside his seat. "Can I get you anything, Mr. Washington?" she asked. Harold considered for a moment. "Actually, Ms. Brooks, I wouldn't mind some conversation if you have the time." Lily glanced around. The cabin was quiet, with most passengers either sleeping or engaged with entertainment screens. "I can take a short break. What would you like to talk about?" "How long have you worked for Stellar Transit?" Harold asked. 8 years, she replied, sitting in the empty seat beside him. "I started right after college." "And do you enjoy your work?" Lily smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. "I do. I love meeting different people, seeing new places. Every day is different." "Even when you have to deal with difficult passengers?" Harold asked with a slight raise of his eyebrow. Lily blushed. "I deserve that. But to answer honestly, yes. Even the hard days. I'm good at solving problems, helping people. It matters to me." Harold nodded. "What do you know about the company's financial situation?" Lily's smile faded. "Officially, we're told everything is fine. Unofficially." She lowered her voice. "Routes are being cut, maintenance is being delayed, and there are rumors about selling to Galaxy Cruise Lines. Would that be bad?" "They'd strip everything," Lily said with sudden passion. "Keep the profitable routes, fire half the staff, cut corners on safety. Galaxy Cruise has the worst safety record in the industry, but they have the money and we don't." Harold watched her carefully. "You care about this company." "I care about the people," Lily corrected. "From the cleaning crews to the pilots, we're like a family, a sometimes dysfunctional family," she added with a small laugh. "But still a family." "Even Captain Murphy and Greg?" Harold asked. Lily sighed. "They're not bad people, Mr. Washington. Greg has worked here 20 years. His daughter has serious health problems, and our company insurance helps her. The captain has never had an accident in 30 years of flying. They just—" She struggled for words. "They saw what they expected to see," Harold finished for her. "Yes," Lily agreed. "And that's no excuse, but they're more than that one bad moment." Harold studied her face. "You defend them even after they embarrassed you." "People are complicated," Lily said. "We all make mistakes. What matters is how we respond afterward." Harold remembered something. His wife Elaine used to say, "Judge people by how they treat others when nothing can be gained." By that standard, Lily Brooks was showing real character. "Thank you for your honesty, Ms. Brooks," Harold said. "Please call me Lily." "Lily?" Harold nodded. I appreciate your time. After Lily returned to her duties, Harold turned his attention back to the data from Vanessa. There were options here that others hadn't considered. Risky options, certainly. But sometimes risk was necessary. Harold composed a message to Vanessa. Set up a meeting with Frank Bennett, CEO of Stellar Transit Authority, for the day after tomorrow. Don't mention our interest in acquisition. Vanessa replied almost immediately. After how they treated you, we should be demanding an apology, not asking for meetings. Harold smiled at his CFO's protective instinct. The meeting, Vanessa. Some things are more important than pride. The rest of the journey passed uneventfully. Harold spent most of it reviewing company reports and financial projections. Occasionally, Lily would check on him, their conversations growing more comfortable each time. He learned about her dream to eventually become a pilot herself, and how she was slowly saving for flight training. As the star cruiser Valiant approached Alpha Centauri, the ship's artificial gravity adjusted to prepare for arrival. The blue-green Inyo planet grew larger in the viewport, its rings of orbital stations gleaming in the light of the system's twin suns. Harold gathered his few belongings and prepared to disembark. Greg Patterson approached him one last time. Mr. Washington, I want to personally apologize again for the misunderstanding earlier, Greg said stiffly. Harold could see the man was uncomfortable but trying to do the right thing. Thank you, Mr. Patterson. I appreciate that. Greg hesitated, then added, My daughter has one of the breathing support devices your company designed for low-gravity environments. It's changed her life. I should have recognized your name immediately. This was not what Harold had expected. I'm glad the EE technology has helped her, he said simply. As Harold moved toward the exit, Lily was there directing passengers. She gave him a warm smile. I hope you have a productive visit to Alpha Centauri, Mr. Washington, she said. I think it will be very productive indeed, Harold replied. He stepped off the ship onto the boarding tunnel of Alpha Centauri's main orbital station. His assistant, Jeff Carter, was waiting for him, along with Vanessa and 2 other members of his executive team. How was the flight? Jeff asked, taking Harold's bag. Educational, Harold replied. Very educational. Vanessa studied his face. You've got that look, Harold. The one you get when you're about to do something either brilliant or crazy. Harold smiled slightly. The line between those two is often very thin, Vanessa. The meeting with Bennett is set for tomorrow morning, she told him. He seemed surprised we wanted to talk. He'll be even more surprised when he hears what I have to say, Harold said. But first I need all the latest data on our new XF9000 propulsion system. And contact legal. We're going to need some very specific contract language. As they walked toward the station's business district, Harold's mind was already working through the details of his plan. It wasn't what his team expected. It probably wasn't even what Stellar Transit Authority expected. But if it worked, it might just save 5,000 jobs and change an industry that badly needed changing. Sometimes, Harold thought, the best response to being underestimated was not anger or revenge, but opportunity. Harold Washington stood at the window of his hotel suite, looking out at the sprawling cityscape of New Hope, the capital of Alpha Centauri's main colony. The city was a testament to human ingenuity, built within massive domes that protected it from the planet's thin atmosphere. Ships of all sizes moved through designated flight paths above the gleaming buildings. The meeting is in 30 minutes, Vanessa Rodriguez said, entering the room with a data tablet. Are you sure about this approach, Harold? It's unusual. Harold turned from the window. Sometimes unusual approaches are exactly what's needed, Vanessa. We could buy them outright for half what you're proposing, she pointed out, or let them fail and pick up their routes at a fraction of the cost. And what happens to their employees? Harold asked. Vanessa sighed. Business isn't charity, Harold. You taught me that. I also taught you that good business looks beyond the next quarter's profits. Harold straightened his simple dark suit. Let's go surprise Frank Bennett. The Stellar Transit Authority headquarters occupied the middle floors of a tall building in New Hope's business district. Harold and his team were escorted to a large conference room where Frank Bennett waited with three nervous-looking executives. Bennett was a tall man in his 50s with thinning hair and an expensive suit that couldn't hide his tired eyes. He rose quickly when Harold entered. "Mr. Washington, this is unexpected," Bennett said, extending his hand. "When your office requested this meeting, I had no idea you would attend personally." Harold shook his hand. "Some matters deserve personal attention, Mr. Bennett." They all sat at the long table. Bennett's executives kept shooting worried glances at each other. "I'll be direct," Bennett said. "If you're here about the unfortunate incident on the Valiant, I want to assure you the employees involved have been disciplined. We take such matters very seriously." "That's not why I'm here," Harold replied calmly. "I'm here to discuss your company's future." Bennett's face tightened. "Our future is bright. We have plans for expansion that—" "Your company will be bankrupt in 93 days, Harold interrupted. "You've been denied financing by every major bank in the system. Your fuel costs are 30% above industry average because your fleet is outdated, and Galaxy Cruise Lines is preparing a hostile takeover offer at 10 credits per share, which is robbery. But your board will have no choice but to accept." The room fell silent. Bennett's face had gone pale. "How did you—" "Information is valuable, Mr. Bennett. Almost as valuable as good spacecraft." Harold nodded to Vanessa, who activated a projection in the center of the table. A detailed hologram of a sleek spacecraft appeared, rotating slowly to show all angles. "This is the Aurora-class Starliner," Harold said. "My company's newest design. 40% more fuel efficient than anything currently flying. Passenger capacity of 300. Range sufficient for any route in colonized space. We've built 10 of them so far." Bennett stared at the hologram. "It's impressive, but what does this have to do with stellar transit?" "You need new ships. We build ships. It seems like a natural conversation to have." Harold's tone was conversational, as if they were discussing the weather. "We can't afford new ships," one of Bennett's executives blurted out. "Especially not cutting-edge technology like this." "Peter," Bennett warned, "but the damage was done." Harold smiled slightly. "I'm aware of your financial situation. That's why I'm proposing a different arrangement. Washington Galactic Industries will finance your acquisition of 15 Aurora-class Starliners, total value, approximately 1.9 billion credits. The executives exchanged shocked glances. Bennett leaned forward. "And the terms of this financing? 10 years low interest. Payments deferred for the first year to allow you to establish the new routes and realize the fuel savings," Vanessa explained, sending the detailed proposal to their tablets. Bennett looked suspicious. "Why would you offer this when every bank has turned us down? What's the catch?" Harold leaned forward. "2 conditions. First, Stellar Transit Authority will implement a comprehensive anti-bias training program for all employees, from maintenance crews to executives. My company will provide the initial curriculum and instructors at no cost. And second," Bennett asked cautiously, "you will establish the Stellar Futures Scholarship Program, providing education and training opportunities for underprivileged youth interested in aerospace careers. My foundation will match your funding dollar for dollar." Bennett blinked in surprise. "That's it? No ownership stake? No board seats?" "I have enough board meetings to attend," Harold said. "This is about something more important than controlling another company." Bennett studied the financial projections. "With these ships, we could undercut Galaxy Cruise Lines by 15% and still increase our profit margins. We could expand to the outer colonies." His eyes showed the first hint of hope. "But why? After how our crew treated you?" "I don't judge entire companies by the actions of a few people," Harold said. "And those people showed me something important too." "What was that?" Bennett asked. "That they care. About their jobs, about their colleagues, about doing better." Harold stood up. "People who care are worth investing in, Mr. Bennett." Bennett also rose. "I don't know what to say, Mr. Washington." "Say you'll build something worthy of this opportunity," Harold replied. Bennett extended his hand again, this time with genuine respect in his eyes. "You have my word. The board will approve this today." As Harold and his team left the Stellar Transit offices, Vanessa was shaking her head in amazement. In all my years working with you, I still don't fully understand how your mind works, she said. Anyone else would have let them crash and burn after being treated that way. Harold walked steadily toward the elevator. When I was 22, fresh out of college, I applied for a job at Lunar Aerospace. The interviewer took one look at me and said they'd already filled the position. I later learned they hired someone else the following week. Vanessa frowned. That's terrible. Yes, Harold nodded. But 2 weeks after that rejection, one man at that company called me, said he'd seen my application and thought it was a mistake, to pass me by. He offered me a position in his department. That man gave me my start in this industry, Vanessa. One person who was willing to look past appearances and give opportunity where it was earned. So this is about paying it forward? She asked. It's about doing what's right when you have the power to do so, Harold corrected. These scholarships will give hundreds of young people their chance. The anti-bias training might help thousands. More get fair treatment. And yes, we'll make a healthy profit on the financing deal too. Jeff checked his tablet as they entered the elevator. The legal team has the contracts ready. Bennett wasn't lying about the board. They're meeting in emergency session now. Harold nodded. Good. Also, I want to make one addition to the deal. What's that? Vanessa asked. Flight attendant Lily Brooks is to be offered a place in their pilot training program. Fully funded. Jeff made a note. May I ask why, sir? Harold smiled slightly. Because she showed me what stellar transit could be at its best. And because sometimes, all someone needs is one person who believes in their potential. As the elevator descended toward the ground floor, Harold felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Tomorrow, the news would announce the deal that saved Stellar Transit Authority. But the real victory wasn't the business deal. It was the doors that would open for people who deserved a chance to show what they could do. 6 months passed quickly. The news of Washington Galactic Industries financing Stellar Transit Authority had made headlines across the colonized worlds. Financial experts called it everything from a brilliant strategic partnership to a puzzling act of charity. Harold Washington, as usual, made no public comments, letting the results speak for themselves. On a clear morning at New Hope's main spaceport, crowds gathered for the unveiling of the first Aurora-class starliner to join the Stellar Transit fleet. The ship gleamed in the light of Alpha Centauri's twin suns, its sleek design unlike anything else in the company's hangars. Harold stood quietly at the edge of the VIP section, watching as Frank Bennett addressed the excited crowd. Bennett looked different now, more confident, more energetic, like a man who had found new purpose. Today marks not just a new chapter for our company, but a new standard for interstellar travel, Bennett was saying. The Aurora-class starliner represents the future, more efficient, more comfortable, and built with the latest safety features developed by our partners at Washington Galactic Industries. Vanessa Rodriguez stood beside Harold, watching the ceremony with a satisfied expression. The stock price has tripled since we made the deal, she noted. Our financing terms look almost conservative now. Harold nodded. And how is the anti-bias training program progressing? Extremely well, Vanessa replied. 97% of staff have completed the initial course. The follow-up surveys show a significant improvement in workplace culture. Several other transportation companies have inquired about licensing the program and the scholarship. Vanessa smiled. The first class of 50 students begins next month. Over 800 applications came in. The selection committee had a difficult task choosing among so many qualified candidates. Harold's attention returned to the ceremony as Bennett gestured toward him. We are honored to have with us today the man whose vision and generosity made all this possible. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Harold Washington. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. Harold had not planned to speak, but he recognized that sometimes visibility mattered. He stepped forward and took his place at the podium. Thank you, he said, simply waiting for the applause to quiet. I'm not one for long speeches. I believe in actions more than words, but I would like to say this. What you see today is not charity. It's investment. Investment in technology, in people, and in the belief that we are all better when we see each other's true value. Harold paused, looking out at the diverse faces in the crowd. The Aurora isn't just a ship. It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we look past first impressions and recognize potential. I look forward to seeing where Stellar Transit will fly in the coming years. With a nod to the crowd, Harold stepped away from the podium and returned to his place beside Vanessa. Bennett retook the stage and continued the ceremony. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce the captain who will command the Aurora on its maiden voyage to Earth tomorrow, Captain Lily Brooks. Harold's eyebrows rose in surprise as Lily stepped onto the stage in a captain's uniform. This was an unexpected development. After the ceremony concluded, Harold made his way through the crowd toward the ship. Lily spotted him and hurried over. "Mr. Washington, I was hoping to see you today," she said, her face glowing with pride and excitement. "Captain Brooks," Harold said with genuine warmth. "Congratulations on your promotion. I was under the impression you were still in training." Lily smiled. "I was, but it turns out I had logged over 500 simulator hours on my own time over the years. When I finally got into the official program, I completed it in half the usual time." "Impressive," Harold nodded. "Though I admit I'm surprised Bennett put a new captain on the flagship for its maiden voyage." "He said something about recognizing potential," Lily replied with a knowing look. "I have you to thank for this opportunity, Mr. Washington. Without your intervention—" Harold raised a hand to stop her. "You earned this position, Captain Brooks. I merely removed an obstacle." A young man in a maintenance uniform approached them hesitantly. "Excuse me, Captain Brooks, Mr. Washington. I'm sorry to interrupt." "What is it, Kevin?" Lily asked. "The final system checks are complete. The Aurora is ready for boarding procedures whenever you give the order." "Thank you, Kevin. I'll be there shortly," Lily said. The young man nodded respectfully to Harold before leaving, but then turned back. "Mr. Washington, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm one of the Stellar Futures Scholarship recipients. Without it, I could never have afforded the training to become a spacecraft systems engineer." Harold studied the young man's face, seeing the same hunger for opportunity that he had once felt. "What's your full name, young man?" "Kevin Williams, sir." "Work hard, Mr. Williams. This industry needs bright minds." After Kevin left, Lily smiled. There are many stories like his now. The scholarship program is changing lives. "As it should," Harold said. "Will you be captaining the return flight from Earth as well?" "Yes, I leave tomorrow. Will you be on board?" Harold shook his head. "I have meetings here for the next week, but I may take a later flight. I'm curious to experience the Aurora as a passenger." Lily's expression became serious. "When you do, I promise you'll be treated with the respect you deserve from the moment you step on board. The whole company has changed, Mr. Washington. What happened to you 6 months ago wouldn't happen today." "I believe you," Harold said. "Change is possible when people decide it matters." As they parted, Harold walked with Vanessa toward their waiting transport. "Did you know about Captain Brooks?" he asked. Vanessa smiled. Bennett mentioned she was excelling in the program, but he kept the promotion quiet. "I think he wanted to surprise you." "Consider me surprised," Harold said with a slight smile. Later that evening, Harold sat alone in his hotel suite, watching the news coverage of the day's event. The reporters were full of praise for the new ship and the revitalized airline. Financial. Analysts predicted Stellar Transit would become a market leader within 2 years. Harold turned off the screen and looked out at the city lights. He thought about Kevin Williams and the other scholarship recipients. He thought about Lily Brooks commanding a state-of-the-art Starliner. Most of all, he thought about how a moment of disrespect had transformed into an opportunity for progress. His communication device chimed with a message from Vanessa. "Board meeting tomorrow at 9. Do you want me to tell them about your retirement plans?" Harold considered the question. 6 months ago, he had been thinking about stepping back, letting younger leaders take over Washington Galactic. Now he found himself filled with new energy and purpose. He typed his reply. "Not yet. I think I have a few more years and a few more ideas left." Then he added, "Book me passage on the Aurora's 3rd flight back from Earth. Standard cabin." Vanessa's response came quickly. "Standard? Not premium?" Harold smiled as he typed, "Standard. Some lessons are worth remembering. As he set the device aside, Harold felt content. In his long career, he had built ships that crossed the stars, but perhaps his most important achievement was building bridges between people. Tomorrow, the Aurora would begin its journey, carrying with it the promise of a better way forward, for an airline, for an industry, and for the people who had found their chance to shine.